Okay, welcome to the Basics of Newforma Project Center. My name is Lori Lambert, and I am a Senior Training Consultant with Newforma. And today's presentation is just a basic overview of the standards within Project Center. So let's start with what is Newforma Project Center, because those of you who are new to our product, you may not have heard of it before, you may not have worked with it before. It is a project information management software designed for AECO professionals, so architects, engineering, construction owners. We integrate all project information, such as emails, design drawings, spreadsheets, Word documents, and much more in one place. So if you've ever had that happen where you keep one thing on the server in one folder and somebody else on your team keeps it the same, different information on a different folder and you don't know where to look or you don't know how to find it, this is going to greatly help you with that. So we can help you easily file your emails to your projects. So instead of having to keep those email folders and trying to search for things in those thousands of emails and you may have deleted it or things like that, we're going to help you with that as well. And you'll be able to quickly search for and locate important files, emails, and other information, saving valuable time. So it's not just searching of emails, but also any kind of files that you put into Project Center. So things like drawings or Excel spreadsheets or RFIs, things like that. So that'll all be in that one place. So that's the benefit of this, is that you're not having to go through everybody on your project team to try to find that one email or that one document or that one file folder somewhere. It's all going to be combined into that one location. So what will be covered today in our initial basics here? We're going to be going over how to get started with Project Center, how to search for project information, the very powerful search tool that we have within Project Center, how to view and mark up files, how to manage that project email, and at the very end we'll have some Q&A. So let's go ahead into Project Center. So I'm just going to switch screens here. And for our demonstration today, my name is going to be Howard Rourke, and Howard is an employee at the firm. So I'm considered to be an internal user, which is what all of you are currently with Project Center. And we're going to take a look at all those things that were on the agenda as Howard. So if I say, Howard does this or Howard does that, I'm referring to myself. So the first thing you'll notice is on my desktop I have my Newforma Project Center icon here, this little silver ball with the arrows in and out of it. And when you double click on it, it will open to this main screen that I see right here. So this is my Project Center. Now, the first time that you log into Newforma, the only thing I ask that you do the very first time, and you only have to do it the first time, is to close Outlook first. And the reason why is because as we add projects to this My Projects tab, and we'll do that in just a minute, it will then add those folders to our Outlook. So it will also give us some options on our ribbon menu within Outlook, and we'll take a look at those as well. But it does that the very first time, and we only have to do it once. So what we want to do first is we'll close Outlook, then we'll open Project Center, and then we'll add projects to this My Projects. So what are my projects? My projects are projects where I'm currently actively working on the project. So that may change over time. We get new projects in, projects go on hold, or they get completed, or maybe I'm working on one project and then a new project comes in and I get pulled over to that project. And it helps me narrow down the listing from the All Projects. So if I click on this All Projects tab that I see right here, these are all projects that exist in the firm in Project Center. So in my demo database, it's only 20 projects, but in your database, it could be hundreds. So instead of having to always look through hundreds of projects, we would set up the My Projects. So it's kind of like my quick list of projects that I'm currently working on. And it doesn't even have to be projects where I'm the project manager. I could just be on the project team. Maybe I'm providing support, or I need to keep track of certain things, or I'm more of a supervisory level on that project. So to add projects to this My Projects tab, we come up here to our toolbar at the very top, and we see this little icon with the, like a listing here, and it says Preferences when we hover over it. So when I click on that, we have this first option that says Edit My Projects. So we'll want to just click on that. And right now, I don't have anything in here at all because we have never added any projects to this. So we're going to just click Add in the lower left. And what we see here, I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so we can see it just a little more clearly, are this same project listing that we saw on the All Projects tab. So this is a way for us to look at all of these projects and pick and choose which ones we want to have on the My Projects list. Now you could scroll through maybe the hundreds of projects that are in your system, or you could use some of the great filtering functions that we have available within Project Center. The first way that we can filter things out is if you have more than one office, you can just click the down arrow here for the Show Projects from Location, and you would have listings of offices, and you could first narrow down to just maybe your office or some other office to only look at projects within that office. What we also see at the top of the columns, like project name and project manager and things like that, we could also just type into those fields. Now remember, I'm Howard Rourke, so I'm just going to type in Howard as the project manager, and I can see, well, I've got these 4 projects, so I can just select those. No problem. If I want to clear that search and continue adding, I can just click the clear up here at the very top right. They're still selected because I haven't, left this screen yet. But then maybe there are other ones that I'm kind of involved in, but I'm not the project manager. I could start typing in, say, in the project name, maybe it has school in part of the name. And I can say, oh, I need to include that one as well, maybe. Or maybe just scrolling through the first few, you can go, oh, yeah, I need to include this and that, etc. And I can highlight a few, and I can have those as part of the My Projects list. So again, you can use either the filter here at the top just by starting. You can click the little funnel, active, inactive, or active, archive, or opportunity to include or exclude. Or you could, if you start typing in a number, if your projects are numbered according to office or discipline, if the discipline starts with 12, it means electrical or engineering or something like that. You could start typing in that number to kind of narrow it down, or any part of the project name. So you have all these different functions available for you to be able to narrow down that listing of projects quite quickly to start choosing what's in the My Projects. So once we have our projects selected, we're going to go ahead and click OK. And that's going to put these projects on the left side of the Edit My Projects listing here. And if there was one that I saw in here that wasn't appropriate, maybe I clicked one by mistake, I could go back into the ad and I could uncheck it, or I could just click and drag it over to the right to the unused projects. And that would remove it from the My Project list. You can click and drag back and forth. So if it's something that maybe it's on the unused projects because maybe the project went on hold and you wanted to add it back into the My Projects, you could just as easily click and drag it back over to the left. So you can go back and forth, or you could just go back to the ad. Either way works. Whatever is the easiest for you to remember is what you'll do. So once we have this active projects listing here for the My Projects, we simply will say Save Changes. So a couple things will happen when I do this. And the pop-up window comes up pretty quick, so it may not be the easiest to read, is that the projects will be added to the My Project tab. And then also when we open Outlook, we're going to see folders for these projects. So let me go ahead and click on the Save Changes. It's creating my email project folders, and it adds them all to the My Projects tab. So I've got them in here. So from this point, I can just go ahead and open Outlook. It's going to initialize my little Outlook add-in. And as you can see now, I have Newforma up here in my ribbon menu. And we'll talk about that file and project a little bit later when we talk about email management. But you'll notice I now have in Outlook this Newforma items to file. And I have my folders for my various projects. And we'll talk about those again when we talk about the email management. But just to let you know, that's what it does when you add them to the My Projects. So now that we have all of our projects in the My Projects, if we need to add more, we could go up to the Preferences, or we could simply from the All Projects, we can right-click, and we can, modify these and, add them or change whatever we need to do. We can open it, etc. But what I'll do is from the My Projects, I need to go to my Project Home. So to get to Project Home, I just double-click on my project, and today I'm going to be using my Alpen Grove Environmental Science Center as my main project. And we are now at the Project Home. So it's going to tell you Project Home right up here in the name of the project. To get back to my projects, I can just click here to return to my Project Center. So under my tasks here, I have Return to my Project Center. And then I could choose maybe a different project. I'm going to stay in Alpen Grove for today. But if I needed to switch projects, I wouldn't necessarily have to go back to the Return to my Project Center. I could just click the down arrow up here on the top of my ribbon menu, and I could just choose another project to go to. Recent projects, or I could do more and do another search for another project or whatever I needed to do. So I'm at the Project Home for Alpen Grove, and the items that we're going to be talking about today are the project files and the project email. We'll be dealing a little bit with the markup sessions, but more through the project files instead of as the activity center that it is, but we'll take a look at those in any case. Okay, so when you get back to your desk the first time, I want you to open up Project Center. After you close Outlook, I want you to go to your My Project Center, and I want you to add the My Projects to the My Projects tab and create those folders. So that'll be the first bit of homework when you first get into Project Center. Okay, so let's talk about project files. So if I click on project files here from my Activity Center, it opens up this listing of folders. And a lot of people ask me, Lori, well, this looks just like it looks like on our server. Is this a copy? And the answer is no, this is not a copy. Project Center actually has this window into the folders that exist on your server. So we're not copying any of these files. We're simply showing you what they look like on the server without having to know the path or anything like that. We have all of our same folders here because they are the same folders. So even though it looks very similar, to what you have on the server, and people go, well, I always go to the server anyway, and I do all this, and I file things and I search for things and things like that, you're going to find it much more useful to use in Project Center because we have much more capability. And the way that I mean that is that we have different, things that we can do here. We have our Explorer tasks, we can create new folders, etc. But even here within our folders, we can right-click and we have Explorer tasks like being able to copy, move, delete, rename. So whatever your level of access is for your server, it's the exact same access because these are the exact same files. So if you don't have the ability to delete a folder now on your server, you won't have the ability to delete the folder within Project Center either. But you have more functionality. And the way that we can tell that is because we now have a search up here in the top that I can search across all folders that exist in here. So when I'm doing this search, let's say I'm going to search for the word skylight, and I press enter. I'm searching across all the file folders for this project, and I have the ability now to then narrow this down to particular types of files. So not only am I looking at, the results of that, but I can say, well, I know what I'm looking for is a drawing file, and I can just as easily narrow that down very quickly. If I highlight the file, it gives me a little preview down here at the bottom. Now that may or may not be helpful. To see it bigger, we can just double click on it and it will open in the Newforma viewer. Now this is for 2D CAD drawings, DWG files, things like that, PDFs. If you have it in Word or Excel and you have Word or Excel installed on the computer that you're accessing this on, it will open in Word or Excel. So you don't have to have CAD installed to see a CAD file on here because it'll open in the viewer if it's 2D CAD. So you have that ability to just double click and take a look. Now since I entered Skylight, I have this Drawing Explorer screen right here. And I can actually click on where Skylight is found on these 4 different things, and it will zoom into where it exists on that drawing file. Now I'm just going to use my mouse and I'm going to scroll out to see exactly where that is. And I go, oh, okay, that's where it is. You know, that's the one that I'm looking for, or that's what, you know, I need to reference, things like that. So I have that ability to just go into the Newforma viewer and view where this is. Let's say that that was the one that I was looking for. If I was looking for maybe another word, maybe a general storage area that's close to this Skylight, I could then just type in storage and it would find those as well into this drawing, and I go, yep, that's the storage area that I'm looking for that's next to this Skylight that I need to reference. So let me just move this out of the way here for just a second. So there's my Skylight that I just referenced, and here's my storage. And I have that ability to see these on the drawing, and I can zoom in and out and pan around. So I'm going to close this Explorer for just a second. And you'll notice I have some additional tools up here at the top. I have the ability to, you know, zoom in and out using the plus and minus. I have the little hand, so if I need to, you know, move things around with my little hand, I can do that. And I have these other functions in here, like I have the binoculars, so if I need to get that Explorer window back up to try to find a word or a phrase or something like that, I can just click the binoculars to get that back. But I also have the ability here with my little red pen to create a markup. So let's create a markup. I'm just going to click on my little red pen here and I get all of my little markup tools. I have leaders and clouds and text and different pen colors and stamps if you have that loaded. I'm going to draw a cloud with my little pointer finger and I'm going to put it in red, and maybe I need to make sure that this general storage area is right. So I'm just going to draw my cloud around there. And then let me put in a text window here. I'm going to put it in black. And when I click there, I get that. I'm just going to get my little edit text here, and I'm going to say, you know, reference size of storage and location, maybe. I'm going to say OK. And then I'm just going to draw a leader here just to make it even more apparent what I'm looking at here. And I have the ability to save this to maybe send it later. So when we talk about sending info exchange transfers, maybe I want to save this markup session so I can send it to someone else because maybe they need to approve it or forward it or make adjustments or things like that. I also have the ability here to create a PDF because maybe I just need to make a note of it. And just to say that I, looked at it and I made note of it. Maybe it'll come up in a meeting later, and I'm just making the note now so that I can bring it up later. To create the PDF, I just click on the PDF icon up here in my ribbon menu, and I have the ability to just create the PDF. It'll default into the folder that this exists at right now, although you'll notice I do have the ability to just save it to my desktop. Maybe that's what I want to do. I just want to save it to my desktop to take it to a meeting or something like that. And I can rename it. So just know that you have that capability. You can also email this. So I'm going to email this. What it'll do is it'll take a snapshot of what's on the screen right now. So if I open that JPEG right there, it's just a snapshot of that portion of the drawing. And I could send it to whomever I needed to send it to. Maybe it's somebody else on my team, or someone who did the drawing, or an external person, something like that. I can just do that very quickly with that snapshot with the envelope, and that puts it in email. And notice it's Outlook email. It's not some kind of strange format email that you have to kind of search for later. So you have that ability. And notice we have a send in file in project, which we'll talk about when we talk about email management. But that'll be available to you as well so that it gets saved with the project. The other thing that we can do here is if we want to just save the markup session, because maybe we need, like I said, with Info Exchange, we need to send it later, but we're not quite ready to send it yet. We can just close this Newforma viewer session, and Project Center will ask us, do we want to save your new markup session? And you'll just say yes. So a couple things happen here. We're saving the markup, but we have the ability to change the name too. So we can save the markup session as a certain thing here. Maybe we want to say storage, location, and size. And maybe to be discussed during team meeting, something like that. Maybe it's just a remark that I need to remember for later. And I can just say, okay. So we have that markup session created. I'm just going to refresh my screen real quick. I've got my little refresh button up there. And you'll notice that now this drawing that I was working on, that I did my markup session, in the related items column, I have a little icon that references that this is that there is a markup session associated. It does not change. Newforma Project Center will not change the original drawing. It simply adds a markup session to this file. So if I look at the related items down here, I have just a markup session related to it. It does not change the source file at all. It just adds that markup session as a related item. So as you go forward with Project Center and you start doing markup sessions, you'll start to see these little icons pop up into the related items column. So that was just using the word skylight for my search. And you could, you could put in general storage as a search, and it would pull everything up. The important thing to realize with phrases or more than one word in the search is that if you're looking for a particular phrase, you just want to put this into quotes. So without the quotes, I have, let's just put it over here, 338 results. But if I put it in quotes and I press search, I have 11 results. So if you go without the quotes, it's going to find anywhere that there's general and storage, anywhere on the document that's been referenced, that's been indexed by Project Center. But if you're looking for a particular phrase, you want to put those in quotes to look for that particular phrase. It'll save you a lot of time on your searching, trust me. So that's how we do a search within our project files. And notice that I could have just as easily, let me go back to my skylight search here, which I have 147 results. I could have just as easily chosen something like email. And anywhere that that word is in the email, it will highlight it, whether it's in the subject, or if it was in, like this one has skylights, not skylight, but if I did skylights and I was doing email, when I highlight it here, it'll highlight it also in any of the attachments. So that's important to realize, is that when we file things in Project Center, it indexes not only the titles of things and maybe what's in an email, but also anything that's in an attachment. And with the 10th edition of Project Center, which is the most recent edition of Project Center, it will also reference OCRs. So if you have those scanned PDFs, it will try to, and index everything that's in that scanned PDF. So you can also do searches on any of those, which wasn't available before 10th edition. So it's a great addition for a lot of our clients. But you have that ability now, it'll highlight it to see exactly where in the, in that email, because that's what I have it narrowed down to, I know that, oh, Skylight must be in this attachment. And so I can just go ahead and take a look at that. I can see it in the viewer, and I can just highlight it, and again, it zooms right into where it is. So it's a great time saver because you may not have named the attachment, like in this case, the attachment name didn't even have Skylights in it. It's actually on the PDF. So it'll help you with that as well. And notice, just like we saw before, we have the ability to filter to, within subject or from or to. If I wanted to look at all email, I would just go back to my project home, and I would just go to my project email activity center, and I could see all project emails in here. Now currently I'm looking at all messages. If I click the little icon right here with the people, it goes to one person, and it's my messages. So those are messages where I was either the from, the to, or the CC. So as long as I'm one of those three, then it would be considered my message. If I wanted to see all emails and maybe search, within subjects or something like that, I would want to include the all messages, and then that way I would get a better view of that. Now, next to that preferences button up here on the menu, we have also the ability to do the preview. So if you're someone who you like to see the auto preview of the email, up here in the top, you can turn that on. If you're used to seeing, the preview of the email on the right, you can do that by all means. Whatever makes the most sense to you. It's a very flexible system. It's very user-friendly, and it is a sticky setting for you. So if you set it that way for this project, then it'll always be that way, and then it's just much easier to say, oh, well, I always look at it this way, or I always look at it that way. The only other thing I'm going to point out right here while we're on this screen is if you want to see a whole conversation of emails that have been filed, you can just highlight one and click on over here the view conversation, and you would see all emails that have been filed in Project Center that are part of this email thread. So maybe you were part of the original email thread, but maybe somebody just did a reply instead of a reply all. As long as someone has filed the email in here, it will be still part of the same thread. So it's easy to find those as well. So how do emails get into Project Center? That's the big question, right? How do they get here to start with? So we're going to go to Outlook for that. And again, remember, I'm Howard Rourke, and I have my little folders over here. And the good thing is here is that it's a very simple process to file my emails into Project Center. There's a couple different ways that we can do this. The first one, which is probably the easiest one, is just the drag and drop. So if I had, an email like this is for Fowler Square, and, dimensions of the sign, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it was something that was sent to me from someone else, but I'm not replying to it. Maybe somebody else on my project team was also included, and they're going to reply to it. But I want to file it into Project Center so that other people can search for this email. The easiest way, is I can just drag and drop this over to Fowler Square, and it will file it, okay? And it will immediately index, once it's filed into Project Center, it immediately indexes it. So it's kind of like a waiting room. These emails don't just disappear completely out of Outlook. What happens is they kind of go to this waiting room over here into these Newforma items to file folders, and they'll sit there in the waiting room for anywhere from a few seconds to maybe 2 minutes. And what happens is Project Center will go person to person and look at these folders only and see if there's anything to file for that person, if there's anything waiting in the waiting room. And if there is, it takes it and it brings it over to Project Center. It dumps it into the project files for that project, and it will index it. So it indexes, the subject, the from, the to, the attachments, the contents of the email, etc. And what it also does is it moves that email to your deleted items in Outlook. So especially if it's not something that you're going to reply to, but somebody else is, and you've seen it, you don't need to do anything with it, but you want it in Project Center so other people can view it or search for it, you can just drag and drop it to the folder, okay? So that's not a problem. The other question I get is, well, what if the email was sent to 5 of us internally and all 5 of us filed the email? Does Project Center show it 5 times? And the answer is no. Project Center is smart enough to know that they're the exact same email. It will file the first one and index it. And then if someone else files the same email, it will go, oh, this is a duplicate, and it will not file an additional copy. It will just say, okay, this is the same. I don't need to re-index it because it's already here. And it will just move along its merry way. Okay? So while it's okay that maybe only one person files an email, just know that it does no harm if everybody files every email that they get, especially if there's 5 or 10 people on the project team. Newforma Project Center will realize that it is a duplicate. If it already exists and has been indexed, it won't file another copy. But the great thing is like I said, if somebody does a reply instead of a reply all, and the one person who gets it, they file it, it knows that it's, Project Center knows that that email is part of that same conversation, and it will file it and index it into Project Center so that even though maybe you weren't on the CC or the reply, that you would be able to search for it and find it and see the response, etc. So that's one way to get things into Project Center. Now, what if I got an email from, like this one's from Bob Welder to me, Howard, and it's something that, well, I'm going to respond to it, or maybe I want to file it and I'm going to respond later. But I need it in my inbox. I don't want it to go out of my inbox because I need to remember to reply to it maybe later today. But maybe it was something important that I wanted to have indexed immediately into Project Center so that other people could see it. Or, maybe I'm waiting for a response from someone. So the other way that we can file this is I could just highlight this and I can say File in Project. And I'll get this little pop-up window, File in Project, and I can choose what project it goes to. This is that same drop-down that we saw within Project Center. And if it wasn't a project anywhere on this list, I could just click on the ellipse. So on the ellipsis, I can just choose what project it goes to, no problem. And the good thing is here is that I can say, I just wanted to file it in the default location, and I can say OK. Now, how do I know that it was filed by Newforma? Well, obviously, I see the filed by Newforma here, but if I wanted to see it up here in the top part of my Outlook, I can just right-click and choose the field chooser, and just drag and drop categories over here. And when I do that, let me just close my little field chooser here, I have this little item here that I can say, oh, all of these were filed by Newforma. So I know that even though I haven't replied yet, it has been filed to my project by Newforma. So other people can search on it and find it, and it's indexed, and it files it and indexes it immediately. And it also maintains itself in my Outlook. So it's in my inbox. Whereas if I drag and drop over to the folders over here, they come out of my inbox. So it's just personal preference, and it might be individual by project. You can multi-select projects and do either one of these functions, either the drag and drop or the file in project. You could highlight multiples using the Control or Shift buttons to do that, to clean up things pretty quickly. But as you're going through day by day on a regular basis, especially like I do when I get emails that I need to have filed, what I do is I just, if I'm doing a reply, I just file it at the same time. So how would I do that? Let's say that I'm responding to Bob Welder, And here's my email. Make sure that you guys can see what I see here. And I have now this send in file in project, which is what we saw when I brought up that snapshot of my PDF, of my markup. So let's say I'm replying to Bob Welder, and I can say, you know, dear Bob, I will schedule for next week, Howard. Okay, and I want to file it and send it at the same time instead of doing this as a two-step process. So I would choose the send and file in project. I get the same pop-up. I can choose whatever project it needs to go to, and I can say, okay. So it will send it and file it at the same time. So no problem. Okay. So that's how you can, do these as, drag and drop or file in project if the email's already here, or when you reply, you can do the send and file. If you're creating a brand new email, you'll notice you have the send and file in project right there as well. So it's not just replies, it's also brand new emails that you can do that send and file with. So it's very helpful to be able to do that all in one shot. And when we have our other training on team and info exchange, we'll talk a little bit more about the relationships between some of these and how we see things on info exchange as well. So let's go back to Project Center. So that's how the emails get there. And let's go ahead and refresh my screen here because I've had a couple emails since then. And you can see now, with today's date, the meeting request, because I filed it directly, I did the, the file in project, I have this now related. I can see it came from Bob and it went to Howard, and then Howard's response back to Bob. And I have those there, and I could click on the view conversation and I would see both emails related. But the great thing is here is that other people who maybe weren't a part of this who, and this is just a small example, but if it was documents or discussion items or something like that, it's very easy to get caught up in tons of emails. And maybe you're not included on a reply all, or you're not included on the original email, but you want to know what's going on. You can, you can say, well, I want to see everything that Bob has sent that's been filed. And you can see all of these things, and you can see the attachments as long as it's been filed. And you can search across them because they've all been indexed in Project Center. So it's not like you have to send an email out to everybody on your team saying, did Bob respond to you? Did he send us this? Have you received that? If so, can you find the email and forward it to me, XYZ? It's all in one place, and it's all searchable in one place. So I think that's the key thing to take away from this, is that you have everything in a combined place. Only one person has to file the email for anybody to be able to search on it. And it's just a much cleaner way to view things. So it's just a great way to see all of these things and to even see these related items. You can see what has RFIs, what has add-ons, what has, this is an executed agreement, so it's a contract, but anything that's related. So it's just simple, straightforward, and without having to find where on the server it is, or who filed it when, or did we receive it, X, Y, or Z. So just to recap for today, let's go back to our project, My Project Center. We started out with the all projects, and we added projects to the My Project listing. We saw how we could do that using the preferences, that button right up here on our ribbon menu. When we double click on our project, it takes us to the project home for that project. So we're able to see where all of our activity centers are for the project. So the project files and the project email were the two things that we were talking about today. And in the project files, we were talking about how this is like a Windows Explorer type screen, but it has more power in the fact that we can just highlight and right click, and we have these Explorer tasks that are a little more enhanced here than maybe what we're used to with regular Windows Explorer. And remember, the key thing is here is that these are not a copy of your file folders. They are your file folders. So Project Center does not make a copy of these. It's just basically a window into the server in your office, probably your P drive, and all of your project file folders as they exist. And since it is just that window into those file folders, it's not like there needs to be a nightly update or a refresh. They are exactly the files on your server. We don't make a copy of them, but it's where everything gets filed and indexed into Project Center. So no more do you have to ask someone where they filed a document. You can use the search up here in the upper right to search across all file folders. So like I used in my example for Skylight, and then I could just narrow down to only Word documents or drawing files or Excel or images or email. So I have that ability. And then everywhere that we saw today, we have these filters across the columns that we can either click on the filter and click include or exclude, or we could just start typing into the column header to narrow that down. We saw how we could navigate between the project home and the various activity centers, and within project email how we could use the preview button up here to preview emails or look at the auto preview. And then we also talked about using Outlook to file our emails either with the drag and drop or the file in project. And we saw how we could do that. The only other thing that we really looked at today, other than those great functions, were actually within the project files. We talked about doing markups and then how those show within the project files with that little icon. So we went to say, let's take a look at some of these. Maybe we went into, here we go. And we saw how we could just bring up something in the Newforma viewer, and how we could mark it up using our various functions like our markup tool here, or we could create a PDF or a snapshot and send it via email. So we talked about a lot of functions today, but it all builds on one another, and it's all standard in Project Center. On our next session, we'll be talking about how we create project teams and info exchange. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, please ask your project administrator. So Caroline, I'd like to open this up to any questions that you might have on anything that we've discussed during this basic training.
I think we had one question I know of, and then these guys might have some more. But so in the markup session, if you create a markup on a drawing, and the underlying drawing doesn't change, of course, the markup session is saved. Mm-hmm. What if someone changes that? What if somebody makes a change to that drawing? How does that markup session? Does it still?
The markup session is separate. So if they change the original drawing, it will not change the markup session.
Okay.
So it's a completely. It's just like a layer. It's like a completely separate document. Yeah. It doesn't change the original.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I like the project. You can send email directly out of your project center, though, right? You don't have to go into Outlook.
So you're talking about if you want to. So if you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, so if you were replying to say, let's say that you got this email and it had been filed and you wanted to respond to it, you could just open it up, just double click on it, and you can reply here, but it is an Outlook email.
Okay, just curious how that relationship works.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. That's no problem.
And then is there a limit to, so we have we do sub numbers sometimes as phases, where we want a single Newforma project, but it may reference multiple project directories. Is there a limit to how many project directories can be related to a single Newforma project?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay.
I mean, that might be something to ask Kelly.
Okay.
Kelly Euling, because he does more of the technical side of things, but I haven't heard of one. He might know of one, but I've never heard of one, no.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you generate an email out of Project Center like you just described, and
Yep.
that's just, look, a lot of people end up copying themselves on every email they send so that they cannot delete them when they clear their outbox. Does this avoid that problem?
I don't think I quite understand the question.
We have some folks who basically their behavior is that they want all their emails in their inbox, so so they don't have to look in their sent items. So they copy themselves, so it shows up as a new message in their inbox because that's how they organize their email.
Okay.
What our one of our PMs is saying is basically just eliminate the need to speak to yourself.
Right, because you would do the send in file in project, and it would be in Project Center.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't have to always have it there. If you wanted to file it and not have it go away, you would do the file in project and not the drag and drop, because the drag and drop moves it to the deleted items. But if it was something that they wanted it filed immediately, but they weren't going to respond to it yet, then I would just do the file in project.
So when you use the other method of you pull it up, you're replying, you're sending it and filing it from your inbox,
right?
Does it go away then after you respond to it, or is it still in your inbox even after you've replied to it and filed it?
The original email will still, it'll act like a regular Outlook email. So if you reply, the original email is still there in your inbox, and then the sent goes to the sent folder, but it also puts it into Project Center and indexes it.
And it also gives you that category so you know it's been saved.
Correct. Right. You would see, you would see filed by Newforma.
Right. So there's really no reason to keep it because it's now, I mean, you don't have to keep it in your inbox because it's in Newforma.
Correct. And for those, for your folks who do that and they CC themselves, they can clean up their sent items really quickly. Like if they can, like if they label things so they know what project it belongs to, they could mass highlight stuff and do the file in project.
Right.
And then that way it would all, they would be able to catch up on all those old ones.
As we migrate into this, then as we start organizing all of our current emails into projects, then we can sort them by job name, by who they came from, by whatever, and then just dump them into Newforma and then delete them.
Yeah. Right. Right. There's no reason for it to clog up your Outlook.
Yeah.
Might how they want you to file it.
Oh, that's a good question. So basically, if two people are on the same thread and one person files it but the other one doesn't, the other person doesn't see that message has been filed by Newforma.
It's only what they've filed by Newforma.
Right. Okay.
I mean, they would still see it in Project Center, but not in their Outlook.
Right.
Right. It wouldn't tell them that it's been saved in Newforma.
Correct. Correct.
So basically, people are, not that it's really hard, but they're going to duplicate their effort because if they're unsure that it's been saved in Newforma, they're going to do it too.
Right.
Right, but the good thing is that if they're doing a reply all or something like that and they do the send in file, it's one button just pretty much like it is now. It's just they would just choose a project, but yeah, it's no harm to have 5 people file the same email.
Yeah, it's just too bad it doesn't export that out to everybody's copied on the thread that it's a new
project. Yeah, exactly.
You can do that. Like that.
That would be a great function, actually. But then people would get lazy. They'd get lazy. They'd be like, "Oh, I never have to file anything because Lori always files it."
Exactly.
That's what we want.
Any other questions?
Okay, Lori, I didn't hear a single y'all.
It'll come out, trust me. But yeah, so we have the other training for project team and info exchange next Tuesday, I think. So if you have any questions, Carolyn, before that, then just shoot me an email.
Great.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Everybody else watches this recording and they have questions. How are we going to record those questions?
We won't record them. We'll just